Hi everyone, this is Rochelle Rizzi with Vrai Nord, and I'm here with Annette de Lancey, entrepreneur and author extraordinaire. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about her origin story and the business that she started and how that led to creating an amazing book. Hi, Annette.
Hi. Oh, thank you so much, Rochelle, for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Good, thank you. I know that you and I have spoken in the past about a very similar experience that we had about partnerships. But first, talk to us about the business that you started and how that has led to today.
Certainly, I'd be happy to. So I am the owner and founder of CastCoverz. It's a rockin' fun manufacturing e-commerce company based right here in the United States. It'll be 13 years old next month, and we've served hundreds of thousands of customers worldwide. We provide covers for the fun and functional covers for the orthopedic patient. And it started because my daughter was 10 when she broke the humerus in her upper arm, and it was a bad break, and that was her 6th broken bone. And my cooking was no longer a comfort, so I just whipped out my sewing machine, made her a cover and a sling, another set, another set. People started stopping us on the street, and here we are, 13 years later. But I'm also the author of the soon-to-be published book, Till Business Do Us Part: How to Thrive in Your Business and Survive Your Unsupportive Husband. Sadly, I had an unsupportive husband, and it was a real struggle, and I almost lost my business twice as a result. And it's because I was so distracted about his lack of support that I was focusing on that rather than getting my head back in the game. And so I finally found a way. I turned over every rock, and I finally found a way. And so I've written a book, and I have a course coming out, and I've been helping women business owners with unsupportive husbands and running CastCoverz too.
Yes, and I should fully disclose that I'm very much looking forward to my cast cover after my ski accident.
Yes.
And that's going to hook me up.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to have Annette here today because I truly do resonate to that title of the book. And I really try to talk a lot to other women business owners about what it means to have a good partner, whether it's a business partner or your spouse. And I know your book focuses on the spouse piece of it, but I've been through both divorces, both personal and professional. And while I felt burned, I also had some choices to make along the way. Like you said, I tried to put the marriage first. I felt like that was the right thing to do. And I don't know that I necessarily regret that, but I wonder if I had done it differently. So I've been pretty open in the docuseries about my journey. I've hinted to things that have gone on in my life. Like I chose to walk away from my businesses to save my marriage. And there was a bit of an ultimatum in front of me. It's either the business or me. And I just felt that ethically, maybe I should put that in air quotes, that I should put the marriage first. And what I was not doing is putting myself first. I wasn't loving myself. I was feeling constantly like a failure and just completely letting down my family. That was a feeling that I had let sink in, which is why I made the decision that I did. And we filed bankruptcy together. And that I felt very humiliating, going through that entire process and feeling like I had been labeled a failure, or just, I felt like everybody knew and really nobody knew. And it's, right. But I just felt like.
Well, that's a description of shame though. I mean, truly, when you feel so defeated and you think everybody knows, and it really is more of an internal response, but go ahead.
Yeah, no. And that's why I want to dive into what your experience was, because here I am 5 years later, and it took me a little bit of a journey to take the high road and realize forgiveness is not a light switch, but also it's not always about forgiving the other person. I had to forgive myself and get really clear on what kind of life I wanted. So talk to me about that, your journey, and when did that light switch go off for you?
I have to tell you that the fact that we're even discussing this is a very bold move, because some of the comments that I'm getting from some of the, and I can talk about some of the social media opportunities I've had, that women are saying, finally, somebody's talking about this. It's almost to the point where people, where women are saying, I didn't know this was a thing. And so what happened is I was consumed with thinking about how my husband was going to react if I did XYZ in the business. I was consumed with a comment that he made that was snarky. I was consumed with, well, if I say it or do it this way, maybe then he'll be supportive. And the hard part for me is because it was inconsistent. I didn't know, sometimes he was supportive, sometimes he wasn't. And so it was almost like walking down an alley and I wasn't sure what was going to be around the corner. And so there was this tremendous burden, which I didn't know I had until something happened. I had 3 events happen in 24 hours. And I was the first one, always the first one to the office, the shop, and because I have a manufacturing facility, and the last one to leave, almost always. And as entrepreneurs, we know how that goes. And I left the office one night, and I got home and I was talking to my husband about something, and we got into another argument about something. It wasn't a big argument. I don't even remember what it was, but I was lying in bed and all of a sudden I remembered, oh my gosh, I went running to my home computer and I heard my husband in the background say, what's the matter? And he said, I'll be back. And I checked and I missed a huge deadline, which is the antithesis of who I am. And I went, after I was self-flagellating just really criticizing myself, I finally went back to bed and my husband asked, what's going on? I said, nothing. He said, what's wrong with the business? I said, nothing, everything's fine. So I lied to him. Number one, lied to him. Number two, well, I should say number one, I forgot a big deadline. Number two, I lied to him. The next morning I went back to the office. I opened the door. I had not locked it. The door opened. I had left my business ripe for a crime of convenience. Somebody could easily come in and taken all my equipment, computers, machines, materials, everything, could have done vandalism. Nothing happened. Luckily, I was in a really nice area. But the sinking feeling, it was like, how could I let all this happen? And as I sat down with my coffee, I realized how much of my mind was focused on the lack of support, the same arguments over and over again. And that's when I realized I have to do something. This is, Annette, this is about you. This is about how you're responding. Let's get this taken care of. So what I did is I started hunting everywhere. I started turning over every rock, looking for, talking to friends and therapists and pastors and business advisors and CPA, how can I fix this? I bought every course, every book about relationships, about business, the health of a business. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find anything that related to a woman business owner with an unsupportive husband. And so I created my own program, which I'm happy to talk about how I had to do. That was massive trial and error. And then I started to offer it to other women business owners, found out that this problem was much bigger than I realized. And I was able to show up differently in my marriage. My business was turned around and it became profitable. It wasn't the problems that I had. I was able to get back into it and I got the support that I needed. And it wasn't from my husband. And that was the best part for me to realize. I don't need to have his support. And then I found out the neuroscience why I needed it, but what I did to replace it. And one of the first things that I did, and this is really important, I think, for your audience, too often we get consumed with, is my business going to fail? Is my marriage going to fail? You start reading stories about whether it's divorce or separation or bankruptcy or failed businesses. And what you need to do is, because you're completely consumed with the negativity, is you start reading about healthy businesses and healthy marriages. and you start focusing on those elements. And what I realized when I started doing that, I originally did it just to save my head. I was so consumed with so much negativity. And then I realized how far off I was. So the reality, I took that, like you accept the responsibility, I accept the responsibility, how far off I was from normal and healthy for the business as well as the marriage. And what I also found out that there are parallels to a business and a marriage. And what I mean by that, there's 8 of them actually. So the easiest one to explain is typically if your finances are kind of iffy or not crystal clear in your business, they're probably not in your marriage either, and vice versa. So there's 8 different parallels, and so it overlaps. But the one thing that I found out is I interviewed a neuropsychologist, and she told me that way back when, hunter-gatherer society, that women used to rely on men. Now, I understand some of you might not understand this, but just stick with me here. There's men and women are different, and we have our biological evolution to consider. But the men would go out and get the food and bring it back to us. So we heavily relied on them for our survival. Well, flash forward to today, hundreds of thousands of years later, millions of years later, women overly rely on our husbands' support and opinion on our business. And so it's very hard for us to separate that. Whereas men typically, generally, again, can compartmentalize much easier. So if there was a disagreement, they can actually, like in the morning, they can actually leave and go to the office and not even think about it. And they come home that night and say, oh yeah. And where we've ruminated it all about it all day long. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, reflecting on that, I can totally see that. I think a lot of women can relate that, whether you believe in the evolution piece or not, there is it's a sense of trying to solve the problem, be the nurturer, figure out why it is we don't feel nurtured, and try to pinpoint all of that in one pithy conversation, which never ends up being. We can never get to the point. And I hope that by us starting this conversation with one another, I'll speak for myself. It is not easy for me to talk about, still to this day, the bankruptcy, the divorce, the closing my 4 businesses. I don't feel the shame. I feel just the vulnerability. And judgment. That's what crosses my mind of, the people who were close to me still only know they only know what they think they know. And, and there is a true 12-year process that led up to that moment, right, in that marriage. And there were a lot of moments in my personal life that bled into my business and vice versa. You're right about those parallels. And I will never forget my brother-in-law, who worked for me once upon a time, came into my office, and he knocked first, and I said, come in. And I thought I had kind of wiped the mascara from my cheeks, but he saw right through it. And he said, you cannot let this continue to happen. You need to talk to him and make sure he knows how you feel. I never felt comfortable doing that. Somewhere along the line, I also went through a business partnership. And so when you're looking at, how do you speak to people about looking at those characteristics, to find a better match if you have a second chance?
Oh, great question. And there's actually a path. You can actually follow the path. So typically entrepreneurs are risk takers. We have a tolerance for risk, and we see things differently. And if our spouse is not an entrepreneur, or your partner is not entrepreneurial driven, is not risk, so they're more risk averse, you need to find your support in other places, your people. You need to find your people. And if you find the people that, and I'm not talking about girls. That's not what I'm talking about. You don't want to have yes people. You want to have people who get that you're driven, that you love your business, that you have some questions, you don't know how to do this. It's okay. That's just part of it. And so you need to find your people. So you need to really go out and seek, and you need to find a really good 3 to 5 people that are like that. And they can be your CPA, they can be an association or a network group that you belong to. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you have to find that. One of the things that I talk about in the book and my course, Your Success, My Support, is the support spectrum. And there's just like most things, it's, either one or the other and in between. And I'll give 2 examples that can really help set the tone here. And the responsibility we have also in this. So on one end, the far end, well, actually, I'll start on the other end. I had a customer call my company, CastCoverz, and it was lunchtime, and I love talking to customers. And we got to talking, and she had broken her leg, and she got asked to be in a pie baking. I'm not obviously a pie or baker, trade show event, and it was upstate New York or New Jersey. Anyway, so she was so excited and that she got invited to this show. And so she called her husband. She said, "Oh my gosh, I got invited to this show." And he started to ask her a lot of questions. How are you going to fill the orders? Who's going to help you? How are you going to get the booth? Do you have the system set up so you can take point of sale orders? How are you going to pay for the wholesale goods? And she said, now I'm going to repeat how she said it. This is not how I talk, but this is how she said it. She said, "Fine, I'll call my mother." Click. And so I listened to her, and I said, "Do you want my advice?" Now, by then she already knew that I was the owner of CastCoverz, so I had established some credibility. I had never told her about the book. So she didn't know anything. She said, "Well, yes, of course." So I asked her every single question her husband asked, because they were legitimate questions, legitimate concerns. And so I asked her, and she just quiet on the other end. And she said, "I owe him an apology, don't I?" I said, "Yes, you do." So that's one end. It's managing your expectations that, yes, we need his support, want his support, but you have to recognize that he was coming from a practical standpoint, as also he was concerned about her broken leg. So there was a couple things there that she hadn't, and she just wanted him to go, yay, 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 rah, rah. And that's what our girlfriends are for. And so if she managed her expectations, that would have served that conversation much better. On the other side of the spectrum is a woman that I've been mentoring, coaching, and she makes a wonderful product on Etsy, and it's handmade, but it's a wonderful product, and it's a good sized business, but she is required at 5 o'clock every day to put everything in a closet, never talk about her before her husband gets home, never talk about her business, ever discuss the successes, the wins, the failures, the fears, just make sure the money's in the bank. That is on the other side of abuse. And that is denying her true essence of who she is. And so that's the support spectrum. And so then there's everything in between, of course. I also have the 4 C's of a business and the 4 C's of marriage. And it shows the different stages from healthy to collapsed.
Tell me more about those 4 C's.
Oh, okay. So the 4 C's of business, the first one is the healthy aspect, and that's the commerce and the create. And that's when everything is working well. That's when you have your systems in place. You know what to do when you walk in on Monday morning. And it doesn't matter if you're a daycare provider, you're a manufacturer of what I do, you have a bakery, you're an orthopedic surgeon. It doesn't matter that you have everything in place. Bills are paid, you've got money in the bank, taxes are paid, payroll's paid, everything's taken care of. The next phase, and it's the first phase of something's not right, is called chaotic. And that's when it's unstable, shaky, disorderly, it's unpredictable. The management style is kind of annoyed and irritated, and it's characterized by confusion on purpose and processes. So the employees, the customers, management isn't clear on what the processes are. The next stage is crumbling, and that's starting to be very tumultuous. It's risky, it's compromised. There's a danger of collapse. The management style is very disrespectful, blaming, ignoring. Owner is angry all the time. It's characterized by unpredictable processes, declining sales, AP's delayed, AR is aging, owners frantically working, trying to bring the sales in versus working on the business. There's no reserves. It's difficult to meet payroll. And then collapsed is the last stage. And that's hazardous, dangerous, twisted, and destructive. And that's when the management is just basically MIA. Don't even know where the owner is. And then it's characterized by bankruptcy is typically inevitable. You can't make next payroll or taxes, and you're borrowing under the table. And what I mean by that is either like payday loans that are really very high interest, or you borrow from a family member and don't tell your husband, guilty. And so those are 4 C's of the business. And 4 C's of marriage is very similar in the fact that it's about connection. The healthy marriage is about connection. And that's when you give each other the benefit of the doubt. You support each other, understand what each other's goals and dreams are. You have a shared vision together. A chaotic marriage is when it starts to become unstable and shaky. It starts to become disorderly and unpredictable. Again, the two are getting annoyed and impatient. There's confusion, and the next stage is crumbling, and that's tumultuous and risky. And that's when you've got doors slamming and yelling and saying, talk to the hand, and there's a tremendous level of disrespect, and it's all about me versus we. And then there's collapsed, and that's typically when there's adultery, alcoholism, addictions are involved, and it appears there is no way out. And so the individuals are, of course, in complete survival mode and no longer thriving in the marriage. So those are the 4 C's of business and the 4 C's of marriage.
I can relate to all 8 of those.
Yes, and we can. And this is what's so, when I talk to my women business owners with unsupportive husbands, they're relieved. This is a thing. I thought and so this is why I love getting the message out. It's okay. And there's help for you.
Yeah. And I'm in a way different spot in my life now. I should give everybody encouragement that, number one, it doesn't have to end with bankruptcy and divorce.
Right.
I think it's just a matter of your partner. The 2 people need to be on the same page, and that benefit of the doubt piece, knowing that there's good intent for both people. When empathy starts to go out the window and you can no longer feel that connection or feel that good intent, I think that's, for me, where things started to feel severed. And I started to feel disconnected. And the other thing is, I'm a mother. I have 4 children. Mm-hmm. And when all of this first started, I remember saying, I don't think I would have left, because I'm a practicing Catholic and we just don't do that. Right. Now, right. I know, now that I'm on the other side, that I am not the only Catholic on the planet who's gone through divorce. But at the moment, mm-hmm. I felt such guilt and shame and everything else. And I felt abandoned. When in fact, there were probably some other pieces along the way where I had abandoned the marriage, mm-hmm. in that I didn't feel safe and comfortable sharing. And so I just kind of went rogue because I had to keep moving forward. But when you start to do this and start to do this, it's a lot harder to come back together when you're on your own separate paths. So some encouragement, though, I will say what made my life change was that I got very intentional and clear on the kind of life that I wanted to have. And I went back to the root of, who is that girl mm-hmm. that I want, when I was a girl, who did I want to become? And I had a chance, and I took the chance to reimagine myself. And I'm now in a lovely relationship and full of hope, and with someone who completely supports me and loves my children. And just, I've created this. And he's heard me even say that, it'll hit me sometimes of, I kind of manifested this beautiful life because I'm super intentional to surround myself with people who are loving and lead with heart and who get me, and even on the days that they don't totally understand, are curious. but
Well,
not.
and that's the key, Rochelle, is you said that they support you and they're curious. So again, it's the benefit of the doubt. It's they love you. You surrounded yourself with people like that. If you don't have people in your life like that, you do have a tendency to start to doubt. And then you can't go out and find the good and have the good in your life. And you have to let go to grow. And one of the quotes I have in my course is a family is as healthy as its sickest member. So let's pick that apart just a little bit. If you have cancer, everybody's resources, marshaling, taking care of, making sure everything's okay, right? But if there's not cancer, if it's just a really destructive relationship, imagine that you're just in survival mode. You're not in thriving mode. And so that is, and as a woman of faith, I remember I heard God say to me very clearly, you can't glorify me in this relationship.
I had a voice, not to get all woo-woo, but
people get nervous, but it's okay.
I heard very distinctly one day. I came home, the kids were at their dad's. It was the first week, I think, that we had split custody. The divorce wasn't quite final. We were in the very messy middle. It was very sad, dark time. And I came home from work, and it was winter time. So in Michigan, which is where I'm typically located, it was like 5 o'clock at night, pitch black, raining. Went to check the mail, and all I heard was "take the out, take the out."
Yeah, that's a strong message.
I was like, yeah, like, did I really just? Maybe I'm creating that in my mind, but I was really taken back by that, and I had a good cry. And I later talked to my business coach. I talked to my psychiatrist. I talked to my priest. I talked to my friends, and they all said, yep, you should. He filed for divorce. You need to own this. This is where you're at. And it came to me too that I get to create a new life. And I think we've added all these new C's: curiosity. What was the other one we said?
So it's in a healthy relationship, it's connection and caring, and then it's chaos, crumbling, and collapsed.
Good. And we need to add curiosity. And so I said something.
Yes, and because it's just like when you're really, in fact, that was one of the posts that it's on my blog or on my Facebook page. That when you're really angry about something, let's just use it innocuous. The GPS doesn't work in your car. Instead of just say, now I wonder why they programmed it that way. Just start thinking of the curiosity part. Why did they think? Before you know it, you start diverging yourself from ramping up. In fact, when my children were little, I have two, and they're in their 20s now, and they're out of the nest and doing well. But when they were little and they would come to me with a problem, I would make them, require them to come to me with 3 solutions. So some of them were outlandish, but the fact is that they had a problem is usually fighting with each other, sibling rivalry kind of thing. And I asked them, well, what are the 3 things you do to take care of this? And so what it did is at least got them off of thinking about pointing fingers and upset and all that kind of stuff, and got them thinking. And so it got to be a point where they knew they couldn't come to me unless they had 3 solutions. And then we would talk about them. And then after they got even older, they started realizing, oh, this isn't a problem. I don't even need to go to mom. I've got this solution. And now they only come to me with the really big things.
Yeah.
So that's.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I know we could talk for hours about this. I want to give you some time to talk about what's next for you and some of the things that you're cooking up. And I also, before I forget, just want to acknowledge, I really admire the approach you have that we're not victims of our life. Now, some people are going through some major abuse, feeling like they're stuck in a cycle. There are choices to be had. There are moments in our life where we truly are victims. Somebody has attacked us. Something bad has happened.
Absolutely.
It's the strength to get out of that.
Yes.
And, you can start here with me and Annette to have people who have your back. So I just want people who are feeling that lowest of the low, to know that there is a way out.
Oh,
And
can I love on the lowest of the low? I mean, I just love loving on the lowest of the low because we've been there. You and I
yes,
have been there, very, very, very dark periods. And we see, and it's very hard when somebody's in a dark period to see the light. And there
yeah,
was a quote that oh, boy, did I focus on this? And Charles Spurgeon, and he's a prolific Christian author, and he wrote, "I kiss the waves that crash me upon the rocks." What that told me is eventually I will be thankful for the dark, dark, dark season of my life. And it wasn't there when I heard it. And I said, but I know someday I'm going to get there. And that's what I just kept saying every day. Someday I'm going to get there someday. And I am much, much closer to saying, wow, I'm glad I went through that.
yeah,
Not quite there yet, because it was pretty painful. But it is when somebody is really struggling and all they can do is survive, you need to find people that give you that benefit of the doubt, that will support you. Support is a critical element. I talk about this in my book and my course. So many people talk about the support in their lives if they couldn't have done it. I had 3 people in my life, 3 pivotal people that if without their support, I would have shut my business down. I would not be who I am today. It is a very important part that you find people that support and really truly believe in you so you can believe in yourself. It's so important.
yes. And owning a business means that you are an artist. So you are creating something from nothing.
Yep.
And sometimes the inspiration comes in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
So be still and quiet with yourself. And I like to say, appreciate the pause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I really,
I completely agree about the entrepreneurship is just as creative as a painter, a baker, an athlete. It's just a different form. And be so proud of that. You've created something. You're generating something. You're helping your family out. Maybe your profits are off. Maybe your revenues are off. Those are all things that the levers can be moved to get you going. It's a phenomenal thing what you've done and what you've created and what you've done. It's just in who you're serving, your customers, employees, your communities. Women give back to their community 1.7 times more than men. 5 times, excuse me, I'm sorry, I was wrong on that quote. 5 times more than men back to their community. There's so many valuable things that women business owners do.
yeah. And, I, I just love that we're able to show up together today because it just feels like, again, it's very challenging and feels very brave of me to share my story. But I know that if we're doing it in service of those, I just wish somebody had said this to me 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I wish someone had said it's going to be okay and here's why.
Yeah.
That there's a science behind it, that these are the things that have been disconnected for a long time. So thank you for sharing your talents.
You're very welcome.
Story.
I have a quiz that's, are you building a business that you love, but your husband doesn't? 1,700 women have responded to it. And the comments are phenomenal in terms of, thank God somebody's talking about this.
Yeah. Wow. That is a research project. That's amazing. Good for you. And you have something coming up. I want you to talk about something in March.
Thank you. My course, it's an 8-week live. I'm teaching it live. Masterclass. It starts actually Tuesday, March 2nd. And what we will be doing is identifying your big why. And I don't mean your elevator pitch, the real reason you're in business, as well as my framework to get your head back in the game so you can build a profitable business that you love. I'm a certified profit first advisor, as well as a fix this next coach. And so I utilize these tools, and those are tremendous value that women business owners need to feel confident, so that they're not. The number one reason that women fear the most is that they don't have, in this quiz, the results, 1,700, number one reason women fear is they don't have the skills to build the business. And that's what I'm going to be providing. So the course is called Your Success, My Support. It starts on Tuesday, March 2nd. And I believe the link is down below or wherever you have it. And I look forward to serving. And so it's, by the way, it's an inaugural class. We're creating a movement. It's going to be very exciting. No husband bashers or male trashers allowed. This is all about getting in and loving your business, being surrounded by people that love theirs and that will encourage and support each other, as well as getting the skills that you need to really take charge of your business.
That's excellent. And I have to touch on the profit first thing, and fix this next for that matter. I'm a big Mike Michalowicz fan. I practice profit first, and I didn't do that in my previous businesses. I paid myself last.
Yep.
Ladies, you are worth it. This is your business. And in fact, you are doing yourself and your business a huge disservice and devaluing your business by not putting a line item in there for the CEO. That's all I have to say. Please email me later.
It's an excellent summary of the Profit First program. It completely saved my business from COVID-19, from going under. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. If it wasn't for Profit First, I would have lost it.
That's an amazing testament. Yeah. I'm really happy that we're practicing it. And
yes. And that's one of the tools that I'm providing in this 8-week masterclass. I'm going to mention earlier, love on you, teach you, be there, hold your hand, give a hug and a shove to get you out the door and get you to do what you need to do. Oh yeah, it's a great program.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Annette. I wish we could talk all day, but we'll have to do a part 2, maybe a 3 through 10, just do a series together. Because
that would be great.
It can be your
support. As you and I talk about, it's the support. You need the support. You need to find, if you don't have it with your spouse, your primary relationship, it does not mean you have to divorce. It does not mean you have to keep quiet, but you do need to find your support. You need to find your peeps, find your people.
And start with yourself, self-love all day long.
That's right.
Thank you, Annette.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rochelle.